Nubook 2, A Journey to Real Freedom, Part 6. Oh boy, I thought, this is going nowhere. I meant the big body of water that was next to California. I could think it, but I couldn't say it the way I wanted to. Mama said she would be coming to get me, and that we would be living in California. She was saving her money, so she would be able to support us. I tried to consider what it would be like in California. I thought, maybe it was like in my dreams, where I am at the ocean. It was quite a while before Mum returned, but in the meantime she called a lot, and I had fun talking with her. To me, time meant nothing at all, because I seemed to have all the time in the world. Life was just fine on the farm and in my dreams. Grandma and I always had plenty to do every day. Each morning we would go out and feed some of the animals. They had pigs, of course, which were always in the front yard. Then there were the cows that were always in the barn for the most part, and once in a while outside eating the grass. I liked the little cows and how funny they were. They liked to play with me. I would watch Grandma feed the animals, and I would help her do all the things she did, and she would watch me while I rested a lot. Life was always good and natural on the farm. One night, Grandma and I were out on the porch, looking up at the stars. Grandma, there really are a lot of stars up in the sky. I wonder what it's like being way up there, I said in my little voice, not sounding as clear as it is written here. Oh, those lights up there aren't really stars, Duane. Those are big holes in the black covering that surrounds this entire universe. And above the black covering is a place called heaven, she said, with a big smile on her face, as she looked at me with a twinkle in her eyes. Wow, I thought, here's another place besides the earth. Of course, I already knew this, but I didn't know she knew. The place I always go has to be somewhere, so I thought maybe it was where she was talking about, this place called heaven. It sounded fine to me. "What is heaven, Grandma?" I asked in my broken American lingo. "Heaven is a wonderful place that all the really good people go to after they leave the earth," she said as she hugged me and giggled. "Is there anybody up there now?" I asked. "The angels of heaven are up there now, Duane. They made those holes that look like stars, so they can look down here and keep an eye on us. Someday you and I will be up there watching all the people who are down here," she said as she smiled. "Wow, the angels are watching us, Grandma?" I asked, and then I began to wonder about all this in the many areas of my little mind. "They sure are. They have nothing better to do than to watch all that goes on here with all the funny things people do," she said with a grin. "This is some exciting stuff," I thought, and so I asked her, "What are angels, Grandma?" She laughed and said, "Didn't your mama ever tell you about the angels in heaven, honey?" "Not that I remember, Grandma," I said, rather dumbfounded as I blurted it out. How was I to know this stuff? "Okay, well, you really need to know who they are, and so I will tell you. First of all, they were once like you and I, people of the earth. They used to live down here on the land and work in the soil, just like us. They worked really hard, just like your mum and everyone. They worked so hard and were so good that the big guy in the clouds let them go to a wonderful place known as heaven. So, if you decide to work hard and do something wonderful, you will be going to heaven up there, with all the beautiful angels. Does that sound like fun?" she said, as she smiled and smiled at me. "That sounds great," I said, as I tried to imagine this place she called heaven. And so I asked her, "What is heaven like, Grandma?" "It's a wonderful place, where everything is beautiful all the time, and there is a gigantic sun that is always shining. There is also a lot of green grass, and beautiful trees, and long, wonderful beaches. All the people who live there never have to worry about anything. You can have whatever you want to eat, and you never get fat," she said, with a big smile and a little bit of a giggle as she hugged me. All of this was beginning to sound really great to me. A place where the sun was shining all of the time, and all you can eat. I really liked the sound of everything she was saying. Besides napping a lot, I really liked eating, especially cake and ice cream. "Are there any kids up there to play with, Grandma?" I asked. "There sure are. Sometimes there are children who are so good that the big guy wants them up there right away. The children up there can have all the toys and games and ice cream they want, as long as they are good and nice," she replied, as though she was an authority on what was happening in heaven. I listened very closely to her. I was taking in everything she was saying, and the best I could. Heaven sounded really good to me. A place where kids can always have fun and eat all the ice cream and cake they want. This was great. But then I thought of something and asked, "What happens if the kids don't play nice and they don't work hard, Grandma? What then?" "Well, then they have to come back to Earth in another body, just like you did, and learn to be nice, so they can get another chance to be good and stay up in heaven," she said, a bit serious. I was thinking about everything she said, and it all seemed to make sense to me. But of course, everything at my age made sense. Did she mean that I had been bad and I had to return to the earth to try again? I was trying to remember if I had been in heaven before. The place I go all the time sounded like what she was telling me. I wondered if I should mention where I go when I take my naps and sleep at night. I decided to wait and see what happens here. Grandma, I am going to be really good, so that I don't have to come back here again, I said with a real assuredness of a 2-year-old. She smiled and hugged me. Besides, the idea of having all the ice cream and cookies I could have sounded like the best part. Grandma, I said, you are fun, and I like to hear your stories. Does Mum know all the things you do? Of course she does. Mothers know everything. We have to know a lot to be able to teach our children about what is important. When she returns, she will tell you more, she said, as she laughed.